Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Death and Other Details, Season 1, Episode 8. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So I love how they constructed this episode. Basically, it's like, hey, here's where the last episode started off, but let's rewind a little bit and show you all this stuff that kind of went down a little bit before the whole, because the entirety of last episode was over the course of, I guess, maybe a handful of several minutes, because it was basically Imogen and Rufus going over everything, but it happened in the time frame of less than an hour, because some of those events we saw in the flat, like kind of when we went back, some of that predated that hour time period. So Imogen and Rufus could have been in that room for like 30 minutes, maybe even less. That entire episode took place over that span of time. It's like some DBZ time level stuff of, oh man, Namit's been blowing up for about, I don't know, 15 episodes now. It's that type of situation. But either way, kind of rewinding a little bit, we get that moment with Celia looking at the picture of her and Eleanor's grandmother, looking at her husband and Eleanor's, well, I mean, yeah, because I think they were married, but Eleanor's grandfather. And it seems like Eleanor is completely unaware of what's going on there, because she's still trying to convince, like, hey, let's put Anna at the CEO position, because obviously she cares about Anna. She knows Anna's good at what she does, but it's also like, you're in love with Anna, so you want the best for her. And it's like, well, she's able to get the CEO position and keep it. It's also like, yeah, I owe it to her because my family just kind of screwed her family over. So it's like, right, at least let's help her. And it's, you know, it's just like, you know, you want to help out the person you have deep feelings for, feelings that haven't faded over all of these years. But Celia isn't willing to compromise on it. Understandable. Like, her point is to destroy the Collier family. They destroyed her family and hurt her. She wants to make them pay now that she has the opportunity to, because they've been able to get away with it for decades. So obviously she wants to, because that's why later on, when all the shit really hits the fan with the Collier family and everything's so like chaotic and messed up and all the reveals and everything, you see her sitting there smiling because she enjoys the chaos, because it's like, hey, now your family is in ruin. I want to destroy you. I want to break you. I want to destroy your legacy. Everything that has the Collier's name. I don't want to just take it. I want to make it so you have nothing left. Because that's been what's her been driving force for so long. When she tried to go down the legal route 20 years ago, it didn't work out, and so now it was like 18 years ago, but like, she hasn't been able to get justice, and so she sought vengeance. That would be her version of justice. And it's kind of an interesting parallel between like what Celia wants and then obviously what Imogen ultimately wants. But let's break down some of these moments. We have Anna, obviously, it's Anna, Catherine, and Lawrence all finding out. Well, Anna found out first from Teddy, who's very distraught about the Llewellyn death. That's what shocked me the most. I wasn't expecting her to be as hurt by it as she was. But I guess it's like, there's almost there is give and take with the whole dominatrix thing, where it's like, Llewellyn wanted that punishment because, like, I don't know, maybe it's years of sins that he's committed. Like, he wanted to be punished for it, and also it was an outlet for Teddy. So I think it's almost like she almost played the role of a therapist without being a therapist, you know, with a little more physical pain associated with kind of the emotional pains you're kind of like releasing from somebody. But I think for her, it's like there was something there where it wasn't just Llewellyn getting something out of it. She was as well. I mean, obviously in the typical dominatrix fashion, but I think there was just a little bit more. So I mean, I guess it's like, you know, any one of that professional business, getting close to your client. You spend enough time with someone, you kind of get a little more open with them, because he's the only person that's able to see all sides of her. This is a side of herself she's hidden away from other people, just like Llewellyn did. So there's some bonding created there, and her like cuddling him a little bit, like he laying in her lap and she's like rubbing his head. Like, there's something sweet and soft about that. And I think, because she even said, like, I'm not a fan of self-harm the way like Llewellyn was talking, but he was like, no, like, I'm not going to take myself out. I'm a cockroach. You know, he talks about the fact that he enjoyed the power of, I'm the person that they go to when they need to fix something. But here I am, 60 years old, all these other people, rich and powerful around me, who got to have these families as messed up as they are. There's this beautiful destructive nature to like this chaotic family, but it's like, what do I have? I'm just the guy that has everyone's secrets to the point no one wants to sit with him at the party. It's like, it's such it's an isolating position he's in, but he's like, no, I'm a cockroach. I'm never gonna like self-harm myself. So I guess in the end, he probably never had any intentions of ever killing himself. Like I said, I heard an electricity. It sounded like he got zapped. So I thought, like, no, it sounded like he got murdered. Like, maybe he was going to kill himself, or maybe he was just doing that to put on a show, or maybe, as we find out later on, he was poisoned, so maybe he just wasn't in his right mind. There's so many things, but why would he put himself in that position in the first place? Like, I guess that guilt finally got to him, because we have no idea when that situation with Llewellyn was. That might have been, like, after their previous encounter where, like, he was left, like, tied up. Like, this might have been after the Hill Day one. Maybe it's before Hill Day, because, like, well, cause we didn't see his body, so we don't know if we didn't see if he still had the wounds. If he had the wounds, it would have been post Hill Day. So that must have been their last interaction. But, like, when would she have time to have squeezed that in? So I don't know. That might have tied into the rope one, or maybe, like, this was, like, before, like, she tied him up and left him in the closet, so it could have been that while back. Or it could have just been, like, somewhere in the midst of all this chaos. But like I said, just Teddy's reaction just threw me by surprise. Even more so was Hill Day, when, like, neither one of us saw the signs. And it's like, oh, you two? She's like, yeah, it was my night off. And there, like I said, there was something there where when you both have stressful jobs like they do, they needed an outlet. And once again, there is some, even though it was just for one night, it's still the thing of, you take pride in your work, and it's like, this is a client, this is someone you are having some physical and borderline emotional connection with, and it's still like, wow, they're gone. And it's just like, Hilde feels like she feels not only as an investigator, but also considering, like, what happened. She's like, yeah, I thought he was enjoying himself, but, like, did I not really see the pain beneath his eyes when it was all said and done? So both of them are beating themselves up about it, and it's just like, it's there in Teddy's mind, and she can't quite shake it, to the point she's in the kitchen, I think, and she's like trying to hold back the tears, and then she sees a guy, like, taking off the corks, and she remembers Llewellyn drinking a bottle. He was like, yeah, like, there was no cork on it, but, like, why waste a 98? And she checks the cork, and it turns out it was messed with. Someone poisoned Llewellyn, and they don't know for sure, but they're assuming it's ricin, just like what killed Alexandra. So yeah, he was killed. Like, whoever is aboard, like, they are racking up bodies, because then it was Keith, it was Alexandra, now Llewellyn, and we get a fourth one at the end of the episode, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Like, I mean, who knows how many bodies have been dropped over the past 18 years. This is just one boat trip worth of murders. I guess in my head, I just assumed there was only going to be one murder, and it was going to be Danny's. I wasn't expecting the fallout of death, like, but it's like, one by one, like, these people are getting checked off a list. And the greater scheme of things, it's like, why? Because it feels like there are other people who, like, you would think, like, Sunil would be a target, but it's like, I guess he still has a purpose. You're getting rid of people you don't need anymore, who are a liability. I mean, Alexandra was going to cross you, so yeah, you got to cross her off the board. Llewellyn was kind of starting to, I guess, feel guilty, and maybe he knew more than he let on, so you had to remove him from the board because he was ready to kind of no longer keep secrets anymore. I mean, that's the danger of having the person who holds everyone's secrets, who has all the cards. Eventually, he might decide to play some of them at one point in time, so. Okay, so we have that. We also, like I said, because Teddy was taking the whole Llewellyn thing super hard, like, Anna was like, yo, like, being kind of the spoiled, but, hey, I was in the middle of an important call, what's going on? It's like, hey, someone died, but, like, Anna had no idea Llewellyn had died. She goes to tell her parents. They're not as brokenhearted about it. In fact, Lawrence is like, he was weak. Also, you wanted to get rid of him for the past decade, which cuts even deeper when we learn later on what we learn. But, like, the fact is that Anna at one point in time wanted to get rid of him is so interesting. But at the same time, I mean, previously we had Eleanor and Layla run into each other, but it's like, well, Eleanor doesn't know that Layla knows, but you're already feeling a little guilty because it's like, well, you hooked up with your ex and you're running into your ex's wife after you like had an affair with her, so it's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of weird, and Layla's kind of staring you down. She's looking for Anna, but she runs into Trip, which Trip tries to mediate the whole thing. It's like, right, you love my sister, yeah, she fucked Eleanor, she's fucked up, but give her a chance to like fix things because she does love you. You guys are still married, and kind of give her a chance, because he's coming from the perspective of, you don't want to waste this opportunity because you don't know how long you have, because he lost to Alexandra. It's like, she was telling me she was in danger and I didn't want to believe her, I didn't listen to her, I wish I had, you know? Because like I said, I think it was a one-way street. I think she kind of liked him, but a lot of stuff kind of ever prevented it going too far. But I do believe Trip was like head over heels for her, and he's like wondering, like, did my dad do this? And from Layla's perspective, is like, no, this is bigger than your dad. He has some fault in all of this, but this is bigger than him. This is Victor Sams, so probably isn't the one behind killing Alexandra. We'll get to that soon enough. But when all the witnesses, when basically a lot of our core cast is all in that like dining area, shit really hits the fan and all the dirty secrets come out. Because Lawrence did a whole situation, I forgot what was said that made him walk away. Because there was a whole conversation of, yeah, the Colliers paid for all of this, but now it's like because Celia owns like 51% of the company. Basically, we're kind of drinking her champagne now. He pisses off, but then like Celia starts dropping truth bombs because she learned from the priest Toby that Anna, her dad isn't actually Lawrence. It's like, whoa, who's her dad then? And it's like, and it took a second, and I love Trip being like, wait, what the fuck? He's like, wait, you're fucking the fucking priest? I don't know why, I love that phrasing, you're fucking the fucking priest. I love that. So it's like, and then they, you know, it's like, wait, who's the dad? And Trip's the one that figures it out. He's like, looking at your face, I mean, your nose, your eyebrows. Llewellyn, really, Mom? It's like, we were both lonely. He was rejected by Kira. She's like, your dad doesn't even know the meaning of the word love. So they were just two lonely people. And it turns out Llewellyn died never knowing the truth. And that's what I was saying earlier, of like, it's so fucked up. Llewellyn never knew about Anna. Anna never knew about Llewellyn. Apparently, for the past decade, you've been trying to get rid of Llewellyn. But it's like, once again, it's like, does Lawrence know about Catherine and Toby's affair? And it's like, did he know about Llewellyn and Catherine? Probably did. But as we find out later on, does he even remember? So, like, it's another element we'll get to later. But it's just like, wow, you just found out your dad isn't your dad, and you found out like, oh, your biological dad literally like a little over an hour ago, quote unquote, killed himself, but we find out no, he was actually murdered. So it's like, that's a lot to get thrown at, and it's kind of interesting. I think they did this on purpose when they recapped the episode when Anna and Imogen had their falling out. Was that episode? Yeah, that was episode 6, and she called her. They even recapped it, like called her an ungrateful cunt. There's a parallel where now Catherine is throwing kind of a similar verbal barrage at Anna now, of calling like how that we've raised you, gave you a great home, put you in a rich position to kind of be able to choose whatever you want for your life and this and that, and it's like, here you are being ungrateful, you know? So that's interesting, and it's like, and I wonder, does that irony strike Anna? Because the irony's not lost on me, and I think, once again, I believe that's why they specifically, well, I guess it's also to let you know what mind state where Anna and Imogen are, because they're super awkward around each other, but I think it's also to add in that, just to show the parallels with the way Catherine went after, like, kind of went on in at Anna's, the same way Anna kind of got at Imogen when they had their back and forth. Also, Catherine was pissed at Toby because it's like, right, you spilled the beans on this. Because that was the thing I was the most curious about. Like, what else? Well, can we know that he's a secret keeper himself, Toby. So, what did he know that gave Celia the ammunition she needed? This was something she was ready, that had it in her back pocket. But I guess this wasn't the only thing Toby told her. Whatever it was, I guess she probably knows about Lawrence's condition. As we know, it's a form of like early onset dementia of sort, because there's no like full on diagnosis, because there's been various diagnosis. So they haven't really nailed it down, but it's some form of dementia of some sort. So I'm wondering, dementia, and I guess that's why. I guess that's probably another thing. That's probably why because I at the time was like, okay, so the reason why Lawrence was so okay with making the deal is because I thought like maybe he was fine with it. He's like, okay, I could sell the company, I could get rid of some of this stuff that like I'm like, would selling the company really get you out of Victor Sam's pocket? But it's like maybe Celia knew he wasn't in the right mind state. He has some better days than others, so she knew it was only a matter of time before things slip up and made it easier for herself. I'd assume she knows. We just don't know everything Toby told her and how she utilized that to her benefit. But we did get Celia's backstory. It was actually really sweet, because obviously like her vision was kind of not great for like doing the sewing in the factory, but Eleanor's grandfather took a lens out of one of his glasses and gave it to her to act as a magnifying glass. I was like, that's actually really sweet, and they found love. But it wasn't even a Collier's meal at that time. It's not until 10 years later, after they had Eleanor's mom, that they the Colliers ended up buying it like 10 years later, and that's when shit went wrong. Just for cheaper materials, Capsium blue was used. At the time, they didn't even know how she didn't even know how her husband got sick, but then they paid them off to be quiet, and she took that money and started her own company so that no one could ever silence her or ever control her again, And that's where it's like, I'll come full circle, where it's like, I'm the one that's in control now. I was at your whim for so long, and I lost because of you, but I was never going to put myself in that position again, especially after things went sideways like 18 years ago with Kira dying. So especially when she tried to do this case, and it hits on a lot of fronts, because it's like, yeah, Anna's still in disbelief that her dad, he might have cut corners, but she's like, it's negligence at best. It's not like he was purposely killing people. But Tripp is like, yeah, but he not only killed Kira because she knew what she knew, it's also for Tripp's perspective. It's like he also went after Alexandra because she's the one that tried to bring the case forward, and she was going to. And that's also like the thing of, there's so many people involved that kept quiet for so long. Regardless of it all, Alexandra was aware of this, but she never brought any like suspicion forward about anything that her and Kira discussed, because she was benefiting from the Collier stuff. And the only reason why she came forward now is because she was getting blackmailed. So it's like, it's not like she came forward with the most altruistic reasons of, oh, I'm going to do good finally. It's like, no, I'm no longer in their good graces, and they're threatening to destroy me, so I want to destroy them first. It's her own get back before they could get to her. So it's not like she had the best of intentions with her coming forward. So it's like, yeah, you would have done good, but like, it took you over 18 years. Like, you knew the Colliers were up to some shady stuff, and you buried. I mean, that's just one of many things. We don't fully, and we know you cut some deals and made things possible for the Colliers. Like, you've done a lot of shady stuff for them, and I brought this up. That was a conversation I had last episode of, we don't know at that point, was Alexandra working with the Colliers at that point, or was it after Kira's death that they started work? But like, she could draw conclusions and comparisons. Like, she knew what was what, but she still kept quiet, and she benefited from the Colliers' backing, In the grand scheme of things, it's just everything is completely and utterly fucked. And so, I mean, you even had this moment where Eleanor was asking her grandmother, like, why didn't you ever tell me? Because for her, it's like, I wanted you to have a long childhood, and a long and happy childhood. I didn't want to burden you with everything that I was carrying. And it's just kind of that older generation sacrifice. You sacrifice so your kids don't have to fully deal with everything that you had to deal with. And it's just like, wow, you were in love with Anna, and you still are, but now I'm sure it makes a lot more sense to Eleanor, like, oh, this is what this was all about. This is why you're adamant about not letting Anna be on the board. And no one's really bringing that point up anymore, because they've all kind of like, oh, you have a personal vendetta against the Collier families. Of course you'd never let one of them sit on the board as like the CEO or whatever, after everything that was taken from you because of the Colliers. So you have Imogen confronting Lawrence, and that's where we find out about the dementia. And Anna's still defending her father, like once again saying he's negligent at most. But when Imogen, because he's thinking Imogen's her mom, he's like, "Oh, Kira," and it's like, why? He's like, "Why did you leave?" Because it does seem like it wasn't just Luwin that was in love with her. Maybe Lawrence was as well. Maybe he never loved Catherine, but maybe like Luwin, he actually did love Kira. It did seem like last episode, because that's why, like, even Rufus was kind of throwing it out there, like, "Oh, is there something between you?" But he's like, "Yeah, some people are one-woman people," and I'm like, maybe you were, and that woman was Kira, you know? Maybe there was some past that Kira and Lawrence had, you know? Llewellyn just always seemed interested in her. I don't know if it went beyond that, but maybe Lawrence was kind of in a similar boat, but maybe they had an extended past, the reason why he cared about her, but... Because he's like, "Oh, I can't do any of this without you. I feel so lost without you." It's like, "Oh, you left me." It's like, no, she didn't leave you. You had her killed. Regardless of whether you did it or not, he admits later on he made a call. And Anna was so adamant, like, "My dad had nothing to do with it." And hearing all this is like, wait, what you did? Wait, you actually did it? Because she can justify, not justify it, but she can accept, my dad's not a good person. He's cold-hearted. He was negligent at best. But it seems like no, because he was pissed, like, "Oh, here you are. You're just like them. Those people who came with their hands out." And it's like, he didn't purposely kill them. He just didn't give a shit enough to worry about them. He probably saw the reports of the caption. No, he definitely saw the reports of the Caption Blue and stuff. But he was like, "You know what? Screw it. I don't care. Like, these people, they don't matter to me." And, you know, and when you have such a low value of life for people you don't know, what's there to say about people you do know? And there's someone that by your side, but it's like the moment people turn against you, you're willing to remove them from the board. Now, to be fair, not just like, not from a business board, like a board of directors type of thing, but just from the board that is life, and almost in a chess or checkers type of manner. But it's like you killed Kira, but it wasn't just on you. You were answering to someone above you, that being Victor Sams. So I'd almost forgot, we also got Jules. He busted out because a couple episodes back, Imogen gave him the key to get out of his cell, which he did. He locked Simon up, but it's like, "Are you a part of this?" Which Simon's like, he's not. But like, who can you trust? Because you don't know who works for Victor Sams, who doesn't. You thought the guy that was delivering the bottles worked for Victor Sams, but it turns out he doesn't. He was just like, "Right, I was just following, like, someone else ordered the bottle, was told to give the bottle to Llewellyn," and we find out the person responsible for that is Catherine. So it's like, wait, is she Victor Sams? Because you're just going from one person to the next. Because at first you're like, Lawrence is Victor Sams, Catherine's Victor Sams, because she's the one that orchestrated all of this. But it seemed, as we find out later on, she's not, because she's dead. Everyone mixed up in this is just a pawn. And it's like sad that in this moment, like, Anna, her and her mom were not in a good place and never had a chance to make things right. And now her mom's gone. So her and Imogen are very much in the same boat. And now it's like, cool. Are you left with the lesser of two evils when it comes to a parent? Because, hey, your dad's still alive, but he's not right in the right mindset, and there's no way he could be behind everything, which is the sad element of it, that's for Imogen. It's like, there is no justice, because even if he went to jail for everything he did, he wouldn't even really, like, it wouldn't even be that much of a punishment considering his mind comes and goes. But Rufus says, like, yeah, but as a detective, you seeking justice is just kind of a fool's game, because it's just, that's not why you do it. It's like, well, why do you do it? It's like, well, for the money. But it's like, the thing you wanted wasn't justice. What you wanted at the end of the day, you wanted your mom back, and that was never going to happen. You know, it's just like, because by finding the truth, even though it's illogical, there's still some part of her that thinking by finding the truth, she can get her mom back in some shape or form, and it was never going to be that way. Solving this was never going to fully give her the closure she would hope it would. It wouldn't give her, like, I think confronting that now, realizing on some level the little girl inside of her still wanted her mom back, you know? I mean, even as, you know, that, because there's always going to be a part, and this last episode kind of expounded upon the whole notion of, yes, there is a part of her that has been frozen into that little girl that she was 18 years ago. That little girl was still there. And obviously she confronted a lot of that last episode, but it's still elements of that little girl wanting justice for her mom, wanting her mom back. But none of this would ever bring her back. So anyway, Teddy and Jules worked to release Sunil, and obviously he has his regrets. He never wanted to get in business with, especially when he found out the truth about Victor Sams. Like, he didn't want to continue working with him, but doesn't have much of a choice now. And so they're all working together of like, right, we don't know if Victor Sams has got the comms, like, messed with and could be listening in, because they were able to hack the generator and whatnot for this boat. So we need to resolve this situation by, like, actually going to land. But when they go to find the boat's gone. And the ship is set to explode. So you're like, Jesus, everything that can go wrong. When it rains, it pours. Oh, backups arrive. Hilde called in some backup. Nope, it's not her actual backup, which makes me want, well, because Jules did say, what if they hacked the comms? So either what was most likely is that when she thought she was contacting her people, it was actually Victor Sam's people that she was talking to, or they intersected the communications and then was like, oh, that's a false alarm, you don't have to come along. I'm assuming it's the former. I don't know. I don't think her backup's on the way at all, or maybe they're a lot further out, and that's going to give Victor Sam's people time to do what they need to do. As I said at the end of the episode, oh, let's play a game or whatever. What that involves, I don't know. I'm curious to see if Derek, because Derek's just been this like minor background character filming stuff. He even filmed some of the stuff from Lawrence's like confession about Llewellyn and stuff like that. Well, just like not feeling too bad about it, yada yada. He was talking about like, oh yeah, like Lawrence Collier is kind of sus, and then Eleanor was like, oh, like who else do you think is sus? And he walks away. So he's just been this very minor character that's been in the background the entire time, but he's probably captured a lot more than we recognize. Probably it's probably like in his like recordings and stuff like that, or his because we don't know like if he's just recording videos and editing them and uploading them. Cause like that video, because the power's out and stuff, he ended up, I think, just recording the video on his phone. But any other time, I think he's been live. So how much has been captured on those live streams potentially that no one's really tackled it? Like, cause no one's really confronted Derek about what's on his phone. So there's probably like a treasure trove of stuff. Because once again, he's such a minor background character, you just kind of don't forget. Like, he comes up anytime Toby references him, and you see, like, he's usually in maybe at one scene in the entire episode. I mean, obviously he wasn't in the last episode at all, because obviously we're dealing with 18 years ago. He wasn't even born yet. I mean, if he was, like, I doubt he's like 18. I'm sure he's like less. I'm sure he's like maybe 15, 16 range, maybe even younger. So obviously the biggest question now is, who is Victor Sams? Obviously, like, you know, your brain immediately can't help but, like, I mean, I'm sure it's been in the back of other people's minds. I think I even thought about it at one of my early theories was like Rufus was going to die pretty early on in the show, and it was just going to be Imogen going forward. But no, still alive and kicking, which has kind of played into another theory. I'm like, we're not going to get to reveal that it's been Rufus the entire time. We know he's a con man. Like, he started all of this as BS, but eventually found his footing, and it's like, did Danny eventually find him out? It's like, you were friends for 20 years. He never suspected you, never, you know, so it seems unlikely. Could be a thing of, how do you hide? You hide in plain sight. I mean, even if it's not Rufus, there could be other people where you're like, oh, it was this person. Like, not unless we find out the truth of, actually it was Danny the entire time, or some BS like that. But it's like, it's got to be someone, you feel like it's got to be someone like minor that's been so in the background you wouldn't see it coming. That like they seem so, I mean, I don't know. Rufus is all I can think of right now, but I feel like that's so unlikely. But I don't know who else to really put at the top of the suspect list. Because obviously, like, a lot of our suspects are dead. Like Catherine, they found the ricin in her stuff, but it's like, she probably, who knows? She probably did it and then was taken care of type of situation. It's interesting too, considering like she was removed from the board. Well, she was killed. I keep using that phrasing, sorry. She was killed, but at no point has Victor Sams going after Winnie, which I think is interesting. You think out of anyone, she'd be the most disposable, but obviously Victor Sams is specifically going after everyone that's kind of rich and powerful, with the exception of Danny. Danny, like, either Victor Sams did not know about that. That was kind of a Winnie on her own thing, but it could also be Winnie thought like, oh, I'm going to go after him because she even said like, oh, I don't know why Victor Sams wanted me to go after Alexandra or Keith. I just assume he has his reasons. So it's like, nah, like he knew about Keith really being Danny in connection to Rufus. Like I said, that is if Rufus isn't really Victor Sams. I don't know. There's a lot. This episode threw a lot at us, and it's probably not going to be revealed. Maybe it won't be till like do a little bit of a Only Murders in the Building season 3. I didn't see the twist coming until like episode 9 is where I was like, oh, from a writing perspective, it would make more sense to be being what it is, which is funny. I would reference twisting and Only Murders in the Building season 3 in particular. Just if you know, you know. And just how extra interesting that is. I brought up that parallel before early on in the season, considering who was in season 3 of Only Murders in the Building and who's in this series so far. But either way, so I probably won't be able to kind of unless the episode 9 actually reveals who Victor is. It might plant some seeds to be like, oh, from a writing perspective, it would make sense for. I'm sure some people figured stuff out in Only Murders in the Building way in advance. I didn't. It wasn't until episode 9 that I figured the potential twist. So I feel like maybe the same thing's going to happen here. I think I mentioned it last episode too. I do believe episodes 9 and 10 are going to drop the same day. I believe it's a same day release for both of them. It's not going to be a week to week for them. So it's going to be interesting to see where all of this takes us going forward into. I mean, I'm assuming this is not going to have a conclusive ending. I'm assuming this is like a setup. I don't think this is a one and done. Could be, but it's Victor Sams' operation seems so massive that I don't see this being over with just one season. But maybe it is, and you never know. It could be like an anthology thing going forward type of thing. I don't know. So, it's going to be interesting to see where the season finale or maybe finale, however that rolls out and plays out, situation plays out going forward with the next episodes. And where they take us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.